This is Orris, the old guy from www.oldguytalks.com, helping older guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those that they love. He's also government certified because he has a Medicare card, and that means he's official. The government says so. And if you like this, well, share it. Comment, review. If you don't like it, well, comment and review and share it too. I can take a bad comment any day. I just don't want to be ignored. I'm here in the house with my guest, Chris Berries, the CEO and founder and producer of ESS C-60, the most powerful antioxidant in the world. And he's a charming guy. He's an engineer. He's done comedy. He's done all sorts of stuff. He's a man for all seasons, or well, maybe just spring and summer, but not all four of them. But he's quite an accomplished guy. So Chris, welcome. And
thank you so much for having me. And I am all about living a kick-ass life. That is for sure. And that tends to happen, spring and summer. Maybe that happens more then. Although I don't know, I do enjoy skiing or snowboarding or whatever winter activities are available.
Yeah, I was just razzing. I think you hit all four seasons. So my wife's going to step in, and she's going to come in the house in a little bit here, and I'm going to get her on board here.
Okay, but we'll get her best behavior when she joins us.
Oh gosh, she won't recognize me if I do that. She won't recognize. This is we were soon to be 27 years married, and if I change, she's probably wondering whether I'm getting sick or something.
Well, it's time to check him in.
Yeah, I'm trying to check it. Are you okay?
By the way, happy birthday!
Thank you.
It's pretty awesome to be on the show with you on your birthday.
That's right. Well, thank you, and it's a fun time. So let's talk about this the history of C-60 and the soccer ball configuration of this molecule.
Yeah, so carbon 60 is it's a third form of carbon. Back in 1985 at Rice University, right here in Houston, Texas, there were three professors who discovered it, and that was Richard Smalley, Harold Kroto, and Robert Curl. Those three scientists actually went on to win the Nobel Prize, and that's an interesting story in and of itself. That discovery, again, back in 1985, they discovered the third form of carbon. There was diamond, there was graphite, and now there's a whole gamut of molecules called fullerenes. The most abundant fullerene is carbon 60. If you think about a soccer ball, you mentioned that. The lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. And so you have the spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms. There are other fullerenes. So carbon 70 is a little more football shaped. Then you've got carbon 84. And then the fullerenes, as they get larger, they just get more round and just larger. Again, C-60 is the most abundant of those. In the early days, they kind of realized that it was harder than a diamond. It would turn into a diamond if it was compressed anisotropically. It had some superconducting properties. There's actually a new symbol in chemistry because of the fullerene, and that symbol is the at symbol. We're familiar with it like in email, right? And if you see a chemical equation like lanthanum, La at C-60, the at symbol means that lanthanum atom is trapped inside of that soccer ball cage. Okay. It's not covalently bonded. It's not ionically bonded. It's physically trapped. That's why that never existed prior to the fullerene. So this material, people in the early days, I'd tell people what I did, and they were like, well, what is it for? And we used to joke that it was for funding. If you wanted to do research and you wanted to submit an application, a proposal for a grant, you would get that proposal because you were working with Nobel Prize winning chemistry. As of 1996, short 11 years from the discovery, Curl, Kroto, and Smalley won the Nobel Prize for that discovery, and that was a Nobel Prize in chemistry. So it's and my company started in 91, largest manufacturer and distributor of C-60 on the planet, have been selling into that really stringent research market. research institutions, professors around the world. We've sold to the Naval Aeronautical Weapons not museum, but Naval Aeronautical Weapons Station, and the Navy. We've sold our material into most of the research institutions that you've heard about, across the globe.
All right. So, Chris, why would anyone such as myself, my wife, or mere mortals that are not in the scientific world care about C60?
Man, that's a great question. So, I'm gonna answer that in kind of a long-winded way, and I'm gonna start with benzene. I don't know if you're familiar with benzene and how ubiquitous benzene is. Right, it's a six-sided, it's 6 carbon atoms, and really in a flat plane, and it is ubiquitous. Like, it's in the plastic in your headphones, it's in the plastic in your glasses, it's in the medicines that we take. Benzene ring is really one of these foundational products, or raw materials. The buckyball, the scientific community figured that this was just going to be a 3D version of benzene, right? Mm-hmm. And if it's a 3D version of this thing that's everywhere you are, it's going to be in everything that you do in the future. And that's actually still true. It's probably going to happen. And it's one of the reasons that they won the Nobel Prize in such a short period of time, in that short 11 years. Because it was so assumed to be so ubiquitous, they needed to do, you always got to do toxicity studies. As it turns out, benzene is a very toxic material, even though it's in some amazing medicines, which are obviously good for us. It's in, or most of them, and in plastics, it's in plastics, which is also a very important part of what we need really in our modern society. It's actually poisonous, and so they assumed that carbon-60 would be poisonous. So they did this study in 2012. And this is where things get really interesting. So they gave a bunch of rats, and this was the toxicity study. So I don't know if you know this, in toxicity studies, you never just give the test subjects a little bit of something and see if they don't feel well.
Yeah, so right.
Toxicity study, you give them a lot of material, and really, kind of from the perspective of the scientist, let's get this over with. Let's define this really high level as being a toxic amount, and let's move on to the next experiment. In this case, they gave rats water, rats olive oil, and rats olive oil. And I'm going to start calling it ESS 60 because ESS 60 is really C60 that's been processed for safer human consumption. Okay. So the rats given ESS 60 and olive oil, those rats lived 90% longer than the control group. So a typical Worcester rat dies at 32 months and has a known amount of tumors. So all the rats in this particular study died around 32 months, and they all had tumors in their bodies. Those rats that were given ESS 60 and olive oil, they died at 62 months. In fact, they had to euthanize that last rat because they were more than 2.5 years over their study that was supposed to be less than 2.5 years, right? So it's double the time. They finally euthanized that rat, and none of those rats had tumors. So if you ask, so why might you be interested in putting this in your body? Because it's the single longest longevity experiment on mammals ever, right? 90% extension of life. And those rats didn't have any tumors. Those are kind of the fundamental reasons why you might want to try it. And then we're getting all sorts of testimony. It's not surprising, if this is real, and obviously we're in the process of recreating the study, that's how science works. Step 1, have some theories. Step 2, check on those theories. By the way, the theory they were checking was that it was toxic, and it turned out not to be toxic. So now we've got the 90% extension in life. Step 3 is recreate that study. So we're in the process of actually funding a study to recreate exactly what was done in that original study. And so there you are, longevity, tumor resistance. If it's going to help you live longer, it kind of makes sense that it's going to have positive impacts in your life in other ways, right? Like it's not, it can't be just something that's benign and now you're living longer, but you're still, as we typically associate with older age, you're still in a wheelchair and you're still whatever in a path that a lot of people are not interested. Like I've asked people, are you interested in getting older? Do you want to live longer? And they'll say no. And I say, well, but what if you're still healthy? What if you're still up and around and you can drive and you can do all of these great things? And then their mind changes and they start to say, well, that's something that I'm interested in. So hopefully that answered it. It's like live longer. Best researched material on the planet right now is this ESS 60, and then the tumor prevention, and then kind of the testimonials that make sense if something actually allowed you to live longer.
Okay. Now, let's talk about these testimonials. And what are you hearing from people that take your product, the Vital C,
Yep.
C-60?
Yep.
What kind of reports are you getting?
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about that we kind of talked about actual research, and those are facts. Now we're going to talk about anecdotes, and whenever I do that, I do want to share with your audience. This product has not been evaluated by the FDA. It's not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease. That's really important to say. I'm as suspect of anyone out there. The reality is one of the really step one is, have a theory. Step one is to notice something in the science, right? So everything started with anecdotal information, right?
Sure.
Even if you go back to Louis Pasteur and coming up with antibiotics, right? Penicillin, he noticed something in the petri dish. And on day one, he's saying, well, I have one petri dish where I had this fungus, and none of the bacteria actually grew in there. And so that's that first anecdotal piece of information. Then they go on to the next step and they recreate it. So the anecdotal information, the one consistent thing that we get, and we get a lot of different types of testimonials. The one consistent is better sleep. And I don't know. Have you read a book? There's a book called Why We Sleep.
No, I have not. I've heard of it, but I have not read it.
I highly recommend it. It is a little bit of a horror novel. It's very, very scary because what it does is it documents exactly what good and bad happens to you as you don't get sleep. So it's what happens to your heart condition, what happens to really your blood sugar levels, what happens to your memory and your mind's ability to process information. And you might guess none of it's good if you're not getting enough sleep. So consistently with My Vital C, we get people saying that they sleep better. And in that book, Why We Sleep, it talks about sleep aids, and I'm going to do quote unquote sleep aids. Ambien is one of these, and that industry is actually a $2 billion industry. And those sleep aids so they allow you to go unconscious, not sleep. And he's very specific about how he talks about that. So you don't get your NREM and your REM sleep. It releases, there's a chemical pressure that happens every hour that you're awake. That pressure just keeps rising and rising and rising, and you keep getting more interested in sleeping and sleeping, right? So this Ambien will knock you out and knock down that chemical pressure to get sleep, but it doesn't allow you to get REM sleep or NREM sleep. With My Vital C, it's a product that you actually take in the morning. So most of these drugs that knock you out and don't allow you to get NREM and REM sleep, most of those you take right before going to bed, right? They tend to make you groggy. They tend to knock you out. With My Vital C, you actually take this product in the morning, get energy throughout the day. And I think you and your wife has some experience with that. And then typically, and I know yours is a little bit different. Well, no, you probably get to sleep fine, but you sleep better at night. And I know have
much deeper sleep.
Yeah. So you are getting much better sleep. Is that?
Oh, I'm much deeper. I'm actually even, I would say that I'm dreaming a lot more.
Wow. Yeah. That's the consistent thing. Now, by the way, all the other things that people are reporting, no knee pain, no back pain, no neck pain, having people have reported like Parkinsonian-like tremors being reduced. I just got a testimonial from a lady in Canada that we're working with. She had a concussion about a year ago, has been suffering from kind of almost debilitating dizziness. She was on the product for 2 days, and she said her dizziness is about 80% gone. So we're getting all of these other testimonials. If you sleep better, that can account for everything else that's happening.
Sure. So now, is it correct to say that the ESS C-60 is the most powerful antioxidant in the world? Would that be a correct statement?
So it's not really correct. So there's I don't know if you've heard of moringa. Moringa is I think it's a leaf. It may be a root, but I think it's a leaf. And moringa is supposed to be like 1,600 times. There's a thing called the ORAC scale, and it's like off the charts. Now, that's in a petri dish, right? So any scale that you're going to say, any comparison of vitamin C to anything else and how much of an antioxidant it is really going to be some sort of petri dish study. So it doesn't talk about what it can do in your body. So ESS 60 is actually a molecule about 10 angstroms across. And that molecule, so what's interesting is if you take one drop of My Vital C, there is 475 times more ESS 60 molecules in that one drop than there are cells in your body. So 407 for every cell in your body, there's 475 molecules of ESS 60 in one drop. So it's a much smaller, it's actually a nanoparticle, and it's able to get in. And one of the studies that they're doing is looking at how C60, when it's into the mitochondrial process, the ATP process, what it's doing in that process, because it's able to penetrate the cell walls and seemingly able to benefit the kind of energy production that occurs in the mitochondria.
Yeah. So you get a lot of energy, increased energy input from mitochondria. So that's a big deal.
It's a real big deal.
Okay.
Yeah, really big. And go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I've noticed more energy in the late afternoon, and more focus. So I thought that's been a big deal. So.
And I was sharing with you that I've noticed, although today I'm having like the first afternoon cup of coffee I've had in a very long time, that I'm not trying to not drink coffee. I just usually in the past it would be, okay, I'm feeling a little groggy or a little tired, let me go get a cup of coffee. That just doesn't happen anymore. Even my first cup of coffee, I could probably skip it. It's just part of my routine, and I really enjoy a good cup of coffee. So,
I love my coffee. I have several cups of coffee. But I just do it. I'm a habitual drinker. You put coffee, you put water in front of me, whatever I will just gulp it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it is. I'll just gulp it down, and I just do that. The only time that becomes a little bit of a problem if it happens to be wine or hard liquor.
Well, it doesn't seem like a problem in the moment. It just turns out a little painful later.
Later on. So now, Chris, there's in the marketplace. There are some pretenders. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. So it's a shame. We're really kind of a small market. And it's one of the reasons I created this kind of demarcation of ESS 60. Because there's, in fact, I'm about to do another video. We got another product. We just ordered another product, and they're making some really crazy claims about having, 10 times the saturation. So having a lot more C60. There's one guy who claims to have his own version of C60 in his product, and we've tested it, and it's a really super simple test. You don't even need a piece of equipment to check this out. You just need a filter, and when you filter it, out of the filter comes clear sunflower seed oil, and if it had any C60 or ESS 60 in it, it would be purple, and it's not purple. So there's no C60 in it, but it's being marketed as C60. And I've actually done, there's a lot of people out there making a really good product, and really they're buying their raw material from us. So I know that they're making a really good product. But there are some people like this, I don't want to go after them, but if they do any damage to their customers, the FDA could come into this industry and say, hey, everyone who's messing with C60, you need to stop selling it. And they could do that, and this guy's not even selling C60.
Yeah, well, that's a shame. So are you the only manufacturer of C60 and sell to other vendors, or there's other companies out there?
No, we are the largest. Yeah, we're definitely the largest manufacturer. Really, back in 2018, we grew the C60 and olive oil market so much that we had to take all of our product. And again, we call it, if it's safer for human consumption, we call it ESS 60. If it's C60, then that's just, we use that for industrial applications and hasn't necessarily been processed. So you don't have the confidence that it's been processed. So we actually started selling a whole lot of ESS 60 and olive oil. And we actually had to start taking our product and putting all of our ESS 60 into our own product. And we weren't able to sell into the industry. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah. And so we looked for other sources because there are other manufacturers, and some are in Russia. We actually visited China, visited a couple suppliers, and it turns out like China has a bad reputation when it comes to health products. And so
you mean lead is not good for you?
Or what is it? Melanin? I don't know if you know that one. So melanin is actually like the material that laminate is made out of. And so they put melanin in baby formula because it increases the perceived, like when you do what's it called? A protein test. The melanin kicks up the protein. And so, yeah. Anyway, so that's the whole melanin thing. Well, anyway, so we were there, and independent of that, I mean, we certainly had our reservations and our concerns. We actually tested the material, and we just found it not up to our standard. So we ended up we didn't buy and sell something that wasn't good, and like we ended up losing business. Like if we had chose to gone down that path, we would have had a lot more customers. We just kind of reduced the amount of ESS 60 that we were releasing into the market, and yeah, it was a detrimental financial decision. We just didn't want to be on the wrong end of supplying the wrong type of product to our customers.
Sure. Well, it's a matter of integrity, and that you want to do that. So, folks, you can see below here is a link to get some ESS C-60, and there is a special offer.
Yes.
And so that offer is $15 off your initial offer, folks, and that is a great deal. It's a huge savings. Yeah. I want you to take advantage of it. So I have a special guest coming in, my wife.
Woohoo! Wait. Remember, we're supposed to act straight.
Yeah, he said we're going to be acting good, and I said you wouldn't recognize us. So I'm going to put the headset on her, and I'm going to let her tell her experience that she had with this.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing?
I am great. You know, I love these spot appearances where I'm not warned by very much. So that's
on the
drive. Now, I am not. I have to say, I am not a pro like my husband is on these podcasts and video casts. So I apologize if I'm speaking into the wrong place, looking in the wrong place.
Very awesome. So Oris was sharing with me that you've had some kind of experiences. You've tried the product for a little while. So I'd like to hear like what's happening with you.
Oh, absolutely. I've probably been using the product for about a month now. The first week I took about 10 milliliters per day in the morning. The first day it tasted really disgusting, but then I found if I drink it and swallow my coffee right after, it works wonderfully.
Yeah, it doesn't really have a medicine-y flavor that sticks with you. It literally goes away with a sip of coffee or water.
The warm liquid. The warm liquid does it. So I started to notice better focus very quickly. And that to me was one of the most important things to have happen. About 2 to 3 weeks into it, I started seeing people who I hadn't seen for a long time. And what I was hearing from them is, wow, you look fantastic. Yeah. And one of them was my mother. So she tells the truth.
they will tell you, yeah, if you look horrible, she'll be like, what's going on? Mm-hmm. And if you look fantastic, she's like telling you the truth.
Yes.
And I understand you have a pretty stressful job, right? So you're like, focus is important.
Focus is extraordinarily important because I juggle a lot of different things. I work with several clients at the same time. So you have to, and they're all quite similar in what I'm doing for them. So you really have to pay attention to what you're doing and be able to pull up facts very quickly. So yes, focus is a very important part of my job. And it stunned me because it wasn't gradual. Within a couple of days, I went from burning out very quickly to seeming like I could sit at the desk all day long without a break. So no, cool. Thank you. I'm very grateful that you created this.
Absolutely. So have you noticed anything related to sleep?
I always sleep well. So the answer is no. I'm not a person who has trouble sleeping. I think I have a slightly better energy level, But I was so excited about the focus that I really, to be honest, didn't even pay attention to anything else, because that to me was the most valuable part. Everything else, as they say in New Orleans, was lagniappe, something extra.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that we do, people constantly tell us, sort of like aches and pains. There, like some aches and pains are gone. Maybe they find themselves doing more around the house. I know in my case, I used to take naps. I actually used to take 2 naps before noon on Saturdays. I would wake up and like go nap while the kids watch TV, and then eat breakfast and then go nap. I don't do that anymore. Have you noticed anything along those lines?
You know, I tend not to focus on aches and pains. So to me, if they exist, they're every so often they'll crop up.
Right.
So to be honest, I don't know the answer to that, because I simply don't pay attention to it.
Yeah. Well,
And you know, I think the areas that you look at are where you see the results. And for me personally, the focus was so exciting that I didn't even bother to think if it did anything else. So I'm sorry if it may, but I haven't realized it. And the looks came from other people. It wasn't something I noticed, and probably because the change was gradual versus the focus was drastic. And I think maybe because the focus was so drastic, I noticed that the quickest. And that's what I.
Well, that's really cool. Yeah. And the only reason I kind of ask is we get some people who are like, oh, I haven't really noticed anything. And then you start asking them some questions. You ask them about their sleep. You ask them about aches and pains. And all of a sudden they're like, well, yeah, that pain I had is actually gone. I haven't felt it. And I'm waking up before the alarm clock or things like that. It's kind of neat. Well, very, very cool. I'm glad that it's working for you. And yeah, I think focus is important for everyone.
I wholeheartedly agree. And actually, I have requests from my mother and my aunt to sign them up for it as well, because what they saw, they thought was very exciting.
Yeah.
And these are 2 ladies in their 80s who say, we like our focus.
Yeah. Yeah. We get a lot. I mean, we're very fortunate, and I'm very kind of apprehensive. The testimonials come in, and I really try to take them with a grain of salt. But they just keep coming in, like they're not stopping, and it's really kind of exciting. So
excellent. And I love the little sample bottle, because it's very good to take traveling.
Yeah, well, and we're working actually on a single dose. I've got a box behind me, but we're working on a single dose. Yeah, I think we've got one here. So this is coming out soon. We're actually waiting for the boxes. So then you just take one of these, like crack off the top, and then you consume squeeze what's in here right into your mouth.
Perfect.
And in your case, take a sip of coffee.
That's really great, because when you go away for the weekend, piling in the jars it's fine, but it's a lot easier if you have something simple like that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
And some of it, a lot of the market doesn't really, if 5 mils is the proper dose, and there's a lot of conversations about dosing. You said you started at 10 and maybe change from there. If 5 mils is the right dose, most packages aren't sold to have 30 doses, right? So if you canvass the market, they're not there. And so we're actually going to be selling 30 one-day uses in one box. And so It's going to be really convenient and really the right thing.
And actually, you know what? That's also because something when I think about when I'm sending it to my mother or sending it to my aunt, rather than have them have to sit there and measure it out, pop it in, throw it out. That's very beneficial, because seniors have enough to think about what they're measuring every morning in terms of their meds.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Great. Chris, thank you. This is very exciting.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining, and thank you for taking the product and making it home in time to join us on the podcast.
You're welcome. Let me give you back to Oris. He's much more fun than I am.
Bye.
You got to. She said she didn't crack the joke that her ache and pain is still here.
Oh, I'm sorry. We do not have a cure for that.
There is no cure for that.
So that was awesome. It's really great to hear. Like I said, we hear testimonials constantly, and to hear like she was into. Have you noticed anything else? Focus. Has there been anything else? Focus. How about sleep? focus. So she was focused on focus and how that's benefited her. So that's really, really great to hear.
Well, I think she also said that she had she said she could go longer in the afternoons, which means a longer, a higher level of energy. In that. So, Chris, I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
And I think this is a wonderful product, and I'm looking forward to promoting it and getting others to take it. And you can see the link down there. And as we mentioned, $15 off on your initial order if you use the promo code Old Guy Talks, all in one word.
So I just want to share with your audience, the website is myvitalseed.com/oldguytalks.
Right.
And when you go there, go down to the bottom of the page. One bottle is $99. Go ahead and get on subscription. It's only $74.95, and you can cancel it at any time. So you're saving $25 right away. And then use the Old Guy Talks coupon.
Okay.
$15 off on that first subscription order.
All right. Well, wonderful. That's a smoking deal. That's a smoking deal.
Take advantage.
Take advantage. All right, Chris. Well, I'm sure we'll be talking sometime in the not too distant future as we hear more and more about this. And good luck to you and your company and all your ventures.
Great. Thank you so much.
This is Orsi Old Guy from www.oldguytalks.com. Remember, it's all about creating a kick-ass life for yourself and those that you love.